The style of management when I arrived back on the farm was a continuous grazing system. And so I looked at the resources we had available, I looked at the animals that we wanted to raise, and I realized that there was an opportunity maybe to do things a little differently and maybe a little bit better. We also started doing our own surface water testing to figure out whether or not my operational practices were having an impact on the water as it left my farm. And as a result, we discovered that our E. coli counts were high, our dissolved oxygen counts were low, so it only made sense to begin to exclude the livestock from our water. So I went to the USDA office in the Soil and Water Conservation District, and they provided me some aerial maps of the farm. What that allowed me to do is then subdivide the farm into different grazing zones. You know, we live in a mountainous area and geography gets a vote. So by breaking the farm up into grazing zones, it allowed me to then focus on a particular grazing zone initially. When the decision was made to implement a rotational system, I really didn't have any experience with how to lay out this system to make it the most useful. So we turned to the Soil and Water Conservation District and their planners, and they helped lay it out. And one of the things that I had never considered was putting a lane in the middle of the paddock system in order to help control and move the cattle. It allows me to move the cattle from one end of the paddock system or the grazing zone to the other. I can put them into a paddock that feeds off of that lane, or I can move the cattle all the way to a stream crossing to another section of the farm, all by myself. It also allows me, if I have a sick animal, to get that animal in and isolate it without bringing the entire herd all the way to the working facility. So the use of that lane, although it took a little bit more infrastructure, has really made this system work. One of the interesting things that I've found about this practice is the opportunity to observe how the different paddocks respond to the environment. And what I've noticed is that some of the paddocks, especially ones that are on the north-facing slope or even have different types of soil composition, grow differently or more slowly than others. If you looked at it on a chart, I shouldn't have turned the cattle back into that paddock because it hadn't been rested as long as some of these other ones. But the grass comes back so much more quickly there that it met the criteria to put the cattle in there. So it's more about grass growth than it is about chart time. One of the most important lessons I got out of my whole farm planning with the Virginia Beginning Farmer Rancher Coalition and my mentors in the conferences I went to with the Virginia Forage and Grassland Council was soil health. And what the lesson I got was, or the message that I got was that if you focus on your soil health, you'll grow better grass. If you grow better grass, you'll have a better herd. So ultimately, it's all about the soil. So 3 years ago, when I moved back to the farm, I implemented a soil sampling and testing program. I chopped the farm up into thirds so that every 3 years I would cycle back and do another sample. So we still got a little bit of work to do to get to our optimal range, but we are beginning to see a good variety of forages and grasses that are showing up in our paddocks because we're getting the soil health in a better way. The other thing we're doing by rotating the cattle through is we're able to allow the grasses to recover and rest. And as a result, taking that pressure off also helps contribute to the organic matter and ultimately to the overall soil health. As I talked to other farmers and kind of bounced the idea of what I was thinking about doing, a lot of them brought up the concern about loss of access to that part of your pasture that is now going to be in a riparian border. But as I went ahead and did this, what I learned is I actually gained further access to other parts of the farm, and I made better use of the pastures that I had available. We're seeing an improvement in the riparian borders from the type of wildlife that lives there, while at the same time we're seeing a very healthy animal herd. At the end of the day, this style makes a lot of sense to how we are farming and what our goals and objectives are. As my family discussed how we wanted to manage or change how we managed our operation, the most overriding factor was we wanted to take care of what we have been blessed with so that the next generation will have a farm to work. So that holistic approach, that long-term goal, really drove what we implemented both on the land and in the water. We are already beginning to see an improvement in our grasses, the variety of the type of forages we have, the water quality is improving, and our livestock health is improving. So we're setting the conditions now for a bright and productive future.